If you're like me, you love beautiful rings and brooches. If you're like me, you also love the hair of your dead loved one. And if you're like me, you especially love it when those two things combine into mourning jewelry. Two great tastes, together at last, like the Bert and Ernie, or Simon and Garfunkel, of grief. Mourning jewelry, as we think of it, has been around since the 16th century, but is most closely associated with the 19th century, the Victorian era. The Victoria, in Victorian, is Queen Victoria, who, after her husband Prince Albert died in 1861, wore mourning clothes and jewelry for decades.
Girl, get over it.
I'm the queen, so no. Keep in mind, this wasn't like, I glued some hair into a locket. The craftsmen, usually craftswomen, mainly young women, were incredible artists. Many of them were from wig-making guilds. By the end of the 18th century, powdered wigs had gone out of fashion, so wig makers had to do something with hair, so amazing hair jewelry became the answer. The pieces, first rings and then brooches and pendants, dripped with symbolic meaning about grief and loss. Not only was the dead person's hair part of the design, there were urns and willow trees and lilies and doves and skulls and skeletons and belts and serpents and columns, all of which had meaning and conveyed something about the wearer to the public. Now, before you say, ew, I don't want my husband's hair, ask yourself, why not? Hair, unlike most of the rest of your body, isn't decaying anytime soon. It's a safe relic, keepsake, memento. In ancient Egyptian tomb paintings, pharaohs and queens exchanged hairballs as tokens of love. Lovers have been exchanging hair locks for thousands of years. Just remember, when your cat coughs up a big, disgusting hairball, love. It wasn't just mourning jewelry that was popular at this time, it was mourning everything. Mourning clothes, mourning stationery, mourning stamps for the stationery, mourning dolls, mourning cigarettes, mourning bikes. Mortality rates during this period were so high, and many women were widows very young. In some way, these fashion trends can be seen as a stand-in for their deceased husbands, and the constant fear that they might be next. Mourning and hair jewelry fell out of fashion around the time of World War I and the Great Depression. Women and families were expected to sacrifice in every way, and it was socially unacceptable to buy frivolities or anything deemed unnecessary during wartime. And out of fashion, they have mostly stayed. Until recently. I paid a visit to the Seattle studio of jeweler and Order of the Good Death member Angela Kirkpatrick, who is one of the people reviving the art of mourning jewelry.
I wasn't always doing post-mortem jewelry. I started out making costume jewelry and just, pretty things, and then became very interested and sort of obsessed with the history of Victorian mourning jewelry. And then a friend of mine lost her dog, and I made a ring for her, and then I had locks of my children's hair from their first haircuts. And a lot of people would just put that in a book, but I thought it would be cool to be able to wear a keepsake in that tradition. I have a silversmith studio in my house. A friend of mine taught me silversmithing. The human parts that I incorporate into jewelry are hair, cremated ashes, and occasionally for baby keepsakes, and also for pet mourning, teeth. So this is my son's tooth, and I set it in silver, and the back of it has his first initial B on there. But you have to be careful when you make this kind of thing because you can destroy the entire myth of the tooth fairy.
Does he know it's his?
No.
Would you wear mourning jewelry? If so, would you prefer cremated remains or hair? Or teeth? Ask a Mortician is brought to you with support from People's Memorial Association and the Co-op Funeral Home, and donations from viewers like you.
This is called a sinusoidal stake. It's a metal forming tool, and its design is based on the tool that ancient Egyptians used to use to pull the brains of a mummy out through its nose. Yeah.